From behaving unprofessionally on the set of Wednesday to publicly dissing the writers of the show, Jenna Ortega has been making taglines for her rude attitude. And recent interviews have got us all wondering, has filming Wednesday made her arrogant? Let's take a look at her conceited behavior at a recent podcast she attended. It's not untypical for celebrities to get haughty once they experience stardom.
Is there a sketch you prefer, this one or this one? And I said, oh, I think that one's funnier. And he said, okay, well then say something.
Will Smith.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Kanye West, Gwyneth Paltrow. These are just some examples of celebrities with their head in the clouds. But Jenna's recent appearance on the Armchair Expert podcast with Dax Shepard proves that she may just be another addition to that list. And when you hear what she had to say about the show that literally made her famous, you'll know why so many people are starting to think maybe the fame has gone to her head. She started off by dissing the writers of the show and explaining how she believed that so many of the scenes just didn't make sense to her. The Scream actress said that she wanted to go home and feel satisfied with her work. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case with any episode of Wednesday. In fact, she went as far as to say that there wasn't one scene in the show that felt good. Yikes. It seems a bit harsh on the writers who actually put their sweat and blood into the script, don't you guys think? But then again, she was just being truthful about her opinion. And while most young actors in her place would express gratitude, Jenna, on the other hand, seems like someone who prefers brutal honesty.
Going to award shows, the 30 minutes before, it's the most sick you'll ever feel in your entire life. You're so anxious, so nervous, so whatever. You're with people that you admire, like the SAG Awards.
And yes, that can be refreshing to witness, but sometimes it's okay to keep your opinions to yourself. Alas, our young actress is an extremely opinionated girl and clearly takes after her on-screen alter ego because, apparently, she enjoys doing things her own way.
And he came to my trailer about 2 days before we shot it and said, hey, Jenna, so I know you said that you wanted to choreograph this yourself because I refuse to see a choreographer. He was like, I know you got it. You've been working on it. I'm not even worried about it.
To the point that it pisses people off. Don't believe me? Well then, let's take a look at Jenna Ortega's unprofessional behavior on the set of Wednesday. You see, folks, everyone has a fixed occupation on set, and most of the time, people stick to their designated job. But when actors start meddling with the script and changing things according to their preferences, matters can get a little complicated. No writer would appreciate a 20-year-old telling them that their work isn't good enough. And so I can see why Jenna's attitude was such a trigger. And she herself admitted that her little perfectionist tick did sometimes make her behave in ways that were almost unprofessional. This is the exact phrasing that she used. So say what you want. It's clear that at least she's self-aware. But what exactly did she mean by unprofessional conduct? Well, for starters, she took the liberty to make changes in the script on her own. She even revealed that, at times, the writers would get very confused. They actually had to stop her and ask, what happened to the scene? And she'd spend a great deal of time explaining why she needed it to change. In the actress's defense, she did mention that she just couldn't do those scenes. Jen even clarified her stance by using some examples. To her, the love triangle made very little sense, and she absolutely hated the part where Wednesday had to get excited over a dress. I guess that makes some sense.
I think we want to up kind of the horror aspect a little bit and then get Wednesday out of the romantic situation and just let her be her own individual and fight her own crime.
Yeah.
Given that these things didn't align with the character she was playing. And as it turns out, Jenna had very different expectations from the show. When signing up for the show, Jen had something very different in mind. She believed that it would be a whole lot darker, but then she got roped into a Disney Channel Harry Potter-esque TV show that primarily targeted the younger audiences. Perhaps that's why she never really enjoyed being part of the Netflix series as much as you'd expect her to, especially given that this show is literally the reason why she's getting offers left, right, and center after almost a decade of struggle. Before her Wednesday fame, Jenna played small roles in shows like You and Baby Jane in Jane the Virgin. This was her first big break, and now she's on the hit list of so many big directors. She even recently joined the cast of Scream and also went on to sign a film with The Weeknd. And while all of this happened as a result of her exceptional performance on the show,
I love horror films. I don't know what it is about, you know, having blood thrown on your face and running around screaming bloody murder, but it really is so therapeutic, so much fun. Everyone who works on horror sets loves horror, you know.
It's clear that Jenna isn't the biggest fan of the series, but that doesn't mean she didn't get attached to the character she was playing. The actress was very invested in Wednesday Addams. In fact, she revealed that for her, it's very important to have an emotional connection with your role. It's the only way to get it right. And given that Ortega spent a lot of time trying to understand Wednesday Addams as a person, she wanted her character to come off as interesting. She didn't like that Burton wanted Wednesday to remain flat and emotionless. Emotional growth and shifting character arcs are what keep a role interesting, and perhaps that's why she felt entitled to make changes. But given that she was working with some very big names in the industry, she didn't realize how her behavior was wounding their pride. Uh-oh, looks like Jenna has pissed off a lot of important people with her opinions. One producer even went on to label her as toxic for bullying the screenwriters publicly. If you haven't heard already, I am talking about the infamous producer and writer Stephen DeKnight.
I wanted to push that even further and have as much of an international cast as I could, often with them speaking their native languages. And I really wanted to feel all over the world that it's an inclusive movie.
Turns out he had a whole lot to say about Jenna's latest comments because they didn't sit very well with him. This is the same guy who gave us iconic shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Daredevil, so we can expect him to know what he's doing, right? The guy has years of experience and knows the ins and outs of the industry. That's why it's probably unpleasant news for Jenna that she's in his bad books. He went as far as to call her toxic and beyond entitled for expressing her negative views this openly. The writer believed that if the roles had been reversed and Jenna had been slammed for being difficult to work with by the writers, well, that would have been unpleasant, and I have to say that this is a fair point, but I'll admit that his tone was a little patronizing when he said that the actress just didn't know any better, but she should have. For him, her comments about the writers just came off as immature and arrogant, and I can see why he'd feel that way, because as much criticism Jenna has directed toward the show, we can't deny that it was a very successful series, even when she believed that wouldn't be the case. Apparently, the 20-year-old didn't even think people would watch this series. Now, may I just remind you that this is one of the most watched shows on Netflix in recent years, and yes, a lot of that credit is owed to Jen, but she actually had very little faith in the series and was surprised that it got so popular. And you wouldn't believe this, but it turns out she said no to the series a couple of times before finally signing on, mostly because she really wanted to do film and not work on yet another show. But Miss Jenna, may I just remind you that this show literally became your gateway into Hollywood, and is the reason why you're getting all these big projects. All this makes it clear why Ortega wasn't easy to put up with on the sets of Wednesday, and why she felt the need to make so many changes. But it also makes it clear that the actress really likes doing things her own way, and in this industry, that doesn't always sit right with people. And given the success of the show, and the praise she's gotten, her attitude issues are probably going to skyrocket. But so far, that's all I have to say about Jenna's arrogance after filming Wednesday.